Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and I just got back from the new film Star Trek Into Darkness. It continues where the J.J. Abrams' last Star Trek film left off. It continues on the alternate timeline and the whole reboot universe, and it's quick and fast, and the camera's moving around, and people are running, and it's always exciting, just like the first one. And he's really, actually, I think, very good at making these big blockbuster movies like this, and he makes them very well. J.J. Abrams is definitely one of the better blockbuster filmmakers out there. I don't know about better filmmakers out there, but better blockbuster filmmakers. There's a couple moments that surprised me. There's a couple moments that I felt were incredibly embarrassing and almost heresy. For the most part, I think the overall quality of the film, it was really good. I had a good time. It was a lot of fun. I liked it a lot more actually than Iron Man 3. The thing I like about this film and the last Star Trek film is it's inviting. It invites a whole audience to come, and it's not just for Trek fans. Now, this film has far too many references, something that I thought this film franchise would have grown out of. J.J. Abrams relies too much on having like way too many references in his films, and it worries me about him doing Star Wars. I really don't want to see a Star Wars movie with lots of references. It feels like something J.J. Abrams shouldn't still be relying on. It's a flawed theory because his Star Trek franchise are really there to get people who don't see normal Star Trek movies to appreciate Star Trek and like Star Trek. And that's really the best of what this franchise can do. This film, like most Star Trek films that are about the original crew of the Enterprise, it's always about Kirk and then everyone else, and kind of about Spock. And this is very much about Kirk, and they even have the typical thing where, oh no, Kirk lost the Enterprise, or the movie starts and Kirk doesn't have the Enterprise, and he always gets it back. He gets it back so quickly, it's like not even that big of a deal. This utilized the cast very well, the entire crew of the Enterprise. Before, people like Carl Urban's McCoy didn't get used very much, and Chekhov and Sulu, I didn't feel like I knew that well. And in this film, I feel like everyone got a lot of screen time and enough screen time where I got to meet these characters a lot more, and the characters we met from last time. This Star Trek franchise is so well cast, and it's such a legendary show. What I've watched both of these films is how well these young actors can take on these roles and really make them their own, but at the same time they're definitely honoring the original actors. Certain actors are doing it very differently. I don't think Carl Urban is anywhere close to DeForest Kelley, and I don't think Zachary Quoto is anywhere as mysterious as Leonard Nimoy did. But Chris Pine, he's so good as Kirk, and like when I was watching it, I was like, man, I remember when I first saw the first one, this is Chris Pine, the movie star. And it feels like since the first one, that's really been missing. I haven't really seen, other than like Unstoppable, there really hasn't been a good Chris Pine movie in a while, or a big budget blockbuster Chris Pine movie. He's so good as Kirk, and in the way that Shatner really had that kind of star presence as Kirk. He's a lot more vulnerable than Shatner. John Cho as Sulu, I still like his Sulu, but it's totally different from George Takei's Sulu. He can't really play it up the way George Takei does. He's really underplaying it. Playing Chekhov, that accent's ridiculous. They definitely have great charisma together. If you're gonna have a Star Trek crew on the USS Enterprise, the whole crew has to have chemistry together. And I think it helps the film flow, and it helps it move. I like seeing Peter Weller. It was cool seeing RoboCop in the same movie as Judge Dredd. They didn't have any scenes together. I hope there's like a DVD thing and they're both wearing their suits, because I would love that. I don't think it reaches up to the heights of the first one. It's not as much about character. Now, frankly, you couldn't do that in a sequel anyway. I understand they're telling kind of a different story. I'm not as into it, but I think like a lot of the construction was maybe a little better. I kind of like the third act more than the third act in the other film. It's probably the most fun big blockbuster movie I've seen this year. I haven't seen a more fun and well-directed blockbuster film, and I noticed there were a couple times in the film that I thought speaks really highly of J.J. Abrams' direction, and his first acts are always really tight. It's always the best part of his movies. I don't think he'll ever beat the first act in the first Star Trek movie. That was just an insane first act. There are a couple of scenes where it was just the score and the visuals, and there were no like sound effects. That almost felt like silent film to me. I was kind of surprised to have such quiet moments in this big movie. And it was only at the beginning, and I wish there were more of them, because they were really striking. It just surprised me so much to have this movie where the camera's zooming all over the place and people are running, and it's very exciting, and it's meant to be exciting, and it's meant to be thrilling and quick and fast and have all this energy, and then he suddenly just stops and you hear the score. It's a way better score than the first film, and I think the first film did have a good score. And the fact that you can just have nothing but the score at certain points really says a lot about how good the score is. That J.J. Abrams felt he could rely on the score that much. These films aren't taking on the big ideas that Star Trek's used to, but I think the way they're built, they're not equipped for that. They're equipped to be fun Star Trek movies for everybody. While I was watching this film, it didn't feel like such a bad thing to me, or at least it doesn't right now. So if you haven't seen Star Trek Into Darkness, this is going to be the spoiler section. So before you stop watching, you can check out my reviews for Star Trek The Motion Picture and Star Trek II The Wrath of Khan, which are both up as of right now. But if you have seen Star Trek Into Darkness, you can keep watching and you can watch those reviews later, or now, and you can come back. I'm not going to dictate how you watch all this stuff, but stop watching if you have not seen the new Star Trek movie. Star Trek Into Darkness has Wrath of Khan envy, and it has it pretty bad. The first Star Trek reboot has Wrath of Khan envy as well. I mean, the character of Nero, whose wife died and he's really upset about it, is very identical to Khan and having a very personal, vengeful villain, all that stuff. This film actually has Khan, and Benedict Cumberbatch plays Khan, and he plays it very differently than Ricardo Montalban. He was very menacing, he was very scary, and he has such a weird, kind of strange look about him. I honestly would believe he was genetically engineered. The problem with the Wrath of Khan envy was a particular scene that I just thought was just awful. That's the scene where you have Kirk dying, and it's the reverse of the Wrath of Khan scene where you have Spock dying. There's a certain point where, you know, they reference tribbles, they reference certain characters, they talk about the USS Roddenberry and things like that, and that's cute and silly. You roll your eyes a little bit, but this sequence was like a Spider-Man 3 sequence. It was awful. To really reference that so heavily, to literally have Scotty say the same thing, but instead of to Kirk, to Spock, and use similar lines of dialogue, is just ridiculous. It's just stupid, and it's kind of heresy. You want to be Wrath of Khan so bad that you're literally just taking a scene from that movie and redoing it. I thought the whole point of doing it in this reboot fashion was to do it a completely different way. And the whole theory of it is just such crap. And the way they perform it somewhat felt like a sketch in certain points. And then, to top it all off, when Zachary Quoto quotes the Khan line and yells Khan, that was just the icing on the shit sandwich. I think I groaned. That really just took me out of the movie. I really hated that. I really hated it. And sure, maybe it's my fault. It's my fault for having seen Star Trek II Wrath of Khan just before I saw this. If I hadn't been as familiar with that movie as I am at this point in time, maybe I would like the scene a little bit more. But that Khan line was awful and stupid and felt like something out of Saturday Night Live. It was kind of disrespectful to Star Trek because, like, why are you literally ripping a scene? It felt like someone covering a song I really like and doing it very poorly, just thinking about how much I like that previous song and how crappy this person is. That to me really crossed a line. It felt like this movie was almost like too self-aware of Star Trek. Maybe this movie should not watch as much Star Trek. The thing that this franchise really needs to do is get out of the shadow of Wrath of Khan. Do something different. Think about the series more. Alice Eve's part as Carol Marcus is in Wrath of Khan. I mean, I know Carol Marcus was on the Enterprise. The third movie just cannot have any Wrath of Khan references. I wouldn't mind a whole movie full of Search for Spock references. I did like the very end of this film was handled so well. They're now on the 5-year mission that the TV series was about. And I even liked that when it ended, they played the Star Trek theme and kind of got me into it. And I thought that was very both respectful and they did a good job. I had a good time. I had fun. I still think it was a very well-directed film, and the plot was so complicated. I feel like most of it was just excuses for people to run around the ship and cool stuff to happen. All the action sequences were so thrilling. It doesn't bother me to not to think for a little bit. They're so smartly done and shot that they have the aura of intelligence, even if the intelligence isn't really there. So if you have seen Star Trek Into Darkness and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to. Again, check out my reviews of Star Trek II The Wrath of Khan and my review of Star Trek The Motion Picture, which are both online right now. And that's it.